Hello, friends. If you've joined us early, you still absolutely have time to go pop the kettle on, butter your toast, grab your favourite preserve.
I'm making coffee still.
Absolutely. We're aware we are a little early, but...
Ooh, camera turned itself off.
Interesting.
Right, let's change the battery.
Okay.
That's why we start early.
That's why we do this. Still learning, folks. Did you put the old battery back in?
No. I put a fully formed one in. Here we go.
Looks good. Cool.
Fantastic.
Amazing. Just hope it doesn't come up again.
Could you pop onto our YouTube and get the link and share it to our socials for our followers?
Absolutely can. In fact, I'll do this just off to the side here. Off to the side here. Off to the side here. Of course.
There we go. And we have someone watching. Good morning. We are just about ready. So, Robs, could you share that link to our socials so that people know where we are?
Okay, fair enough.
Right, I think it's past. Good morning. Welcome to early brunch. I hope you've got your coffee or your tea. Say hello to us in the chat. We'd love to know who we are brunching with. Today we are talking about our programme for Brighton Early Music Festival. We are delighted to be young artists for Brighton Early Music Festival, along with our Swan Consort of Viols and Lilium Convalium, which is a relatively new group founded by Vicente Cavaria. So today we're going to meet Matthew, and both ourselves and Matthew from Arculo are going to give you some insight into the programmes that you can expect from us when we perform in the showcase on the 23rd of October, and that is in St Martin's Church in Brighton. And you can get tickets, they're on the Brighton Early Music Festival website now. If you can't make it to Brighton for the end of the month, I believe there are plans to record and release something online later in the year. So make sure that you subscribe to all of the channels so that you don't miss it when it comes out. Okay, so I'm here today, obviously, as every time. And so is our wonderful tenor, who also happens to be my brother, Robin. They're just sharing the link to our social media. And then we're also going to invite Matthew from Consort of Viols to talk. So, first things first, let's get Matthew on the screen. We're using some new technology.
Let's do that first. We'll get him along.
So, restream, invite guests.
Good morning, Connor. Lovely to have you with us.
I'm going to swap over and do this.
Yeah.
Do you want to
Absolutely.
say hello to people and tell them a little bit about Brighton Early Music Festival as well?
Amazing. So, hello everyone. Lovely to be back in this particular kitchen. With Brighton Early Music Festival, we are lucky enough to have been chosen as part of the early music programme, which will see us getting some specialised training as a consort, for us as a consort of 5, and taking part in some of the very special events that the Early Music Festival puts on throughout the year. First of these is which we will be talking about today, on the 23rd of October. And we are basing ourselves around myths and legends. So there's going to be a lot of talk of nymphs and satyrs and shepherds and the like today. Very much kind of in that pastoral setting. As you may have seen from the title of our programme, it's in Arcadia. Arcadia being this kind of pastoral, lovely, green, verdant and slightly hedonistic utopia, inhabited by all kinds of mythical beasts and creatures, humans and gods. So if you can think back to all of those really interesting tales that you might have learned about back in your school days, that's the kind of thing that we're going to be discussing. I think we might have Matthew with us very, very soon. Are we correct?
Very, very soon. We just sent him a link to join in.
Amazing.
So Myths and Legends is the theme for Brighton Early Music Festival this coming year, which is super, super exciting. I was delighted when we heard that was the theme. I suppose a question for all of you today: what is your favourite myth and or legend?
Drop it in the comments. Send us a message on our socials. Let us know. And if you have any particular pieces of music based on a myth and legend, there's a lot of stuff out there that you wouldn't immediately think of as, as a myth or a legend, but there's some fantastic stories out there. Some that have been set to wonderful pieces of music or inspired great vast orchestral works, and some of them that just exist as the folk tales that we know and love them as. So, your favourite myth and or legend, drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.
Fantastic. Right. So, welcoming Matthew.
Oh.
Hello.
That's the one.
Hello.
Let us know in the chat that you can see and hear. Fantastic. Good morning, Matthew.
Hello, nice to you.
Where are you calling in from today?
I'm in my house in Southall in Hampshire.
Fantastic. And you're a lay clerk there, is that right?
Yeah. So I sing in the Minster Choir this week. Yeah.
Amazing.
I'll do it later today. Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. It's great to meet you. Matthew and I have been chatting on social media, as you do. One of the things that's really great about Brighton Early Music Festival's Young Artist Programme is that we get to meet other people at a similar point in their career as a group. Because I don't know about what you think, Matthew, but I feel like because in a given situation, there's usually only like one young artists group at any one time. Like often you can feel I personally have often felt quite cut off from other groups at a similar stage of development.
Yeah, I totally feel that. I think I felt that first just because I studied in Wales, and I have friends who had gone to London, and all of those people had been in all of these projects, but I was still in Wales, and then I decided to move up to the Midlands. So that's what me on a personal level I felt like that. So at the same time, when I've done young artist stuff, it's quite often been like 3 young and everyone else is not, or or one group, and so it's actually really great to have. I've really enjoyed sort of comparing notes with you, and also it helps. It's helped me talking to you, like with the sort of dreaded imposter syndrome. Oh yeah, definitely.
you can kind of, it's like, oh yeah, no, we're going through that too, like we've experienced that as well. Yeah. So people already know a little bit about the Swan Consort. If you don't, you can check out the first early brunch that we had. But tell us a little bit about Arculo and how do you come together as a group? What kind of music do you like playing? Who is in the band? The band?
The band of vials.
Yeah. So we weren't originally called Arculo. We were called the Royal Welsh Consorts, because at Royal Welsh, the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama, we were all brought together by our tutor, Lucy Robinson. All the string students get the opportunity to learn the viol as a second and get to just play in consort 1 hour a week. And Lucy put the 5 of us together, a group of 5 people who are all cellists and bassists. So we have 3 cellists and 2 double bass players. I'm one of the bass players, and we just managed to get on really well and progress quite quickly, and playing some beautiful music together. We do have our favourites. We like playing. If we ever want something to play that feels like a comfort blanket, we'll always play some of the Dowland Lacrimés or some dances. But then we're also quite keen to start doing some more contemporary music. We've got someone who are in line to write us some music. We haven't pushed it any further yet for various reasons, fund, blah blah blah. But we're hoping that we could become a consort like Freck that do lots of lovely contemporary music.
It's really interesting. Like, I've got to be honest, like, despite being an early music person, I don't really know what the core repertoire for viols would be. Like, can you maybe give us a bit? So you mentioned Dowland, so that's the name that we see.
Dowland's one of the big ones. But it's also piece. You think of choral composers for time as well. So those of Bird, Gibbons, Ward, both of the Wards, Ward and Henry Ward. Christopher Simpson is a great composer. He wrote a treatise on how to play the viol, called A Division Violist, and he teaches to play divisions in between notes, and he's like one main. He doesn't really write like that much consort, but he's probably one of the main sort of viol, English viol teachers of the day, and he's probably one of the most common composers that we play music of. But you just got English choral music, which we now play with a chamber organ, should be played with viols, but yeah.
I was really lucky to sort of have the organ scholarship at Sydney Sussex College, and funnily enough, Robin is now working there. But there's quite a few Alamiro discs that show that. And as someone who does play the organ, I've got to say, like, these little boxes of whistles that we wheel out and call the organ really wind me up. They're sort of good for nothing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I might be shooting myself in the foot career-wise, but I mean, the Crowley stuff that we do, it's meant to be done with kind of like these bold Italian principles, and like I say, sort of English verse anthems and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go and listen to the Alamiro fretwork discs with the viols, it's just a totally different sound world. I'm just going to pause for a technical moment. In the chat, can our friends let us know if you can hear Matthew okay? Because I think on ours, your voice is repeating a bit.
There is a little bit of doubling we have.
Okay. So what I'm also going to ask is, Matthew, do you have your phone next to you?
I've got my phone. Try putting headphones in. That might solve the issue.
Let's try that. And also, could you just record your audio on your mobile phone, and so that we can capture everything that you're saying and maybe edit it?
Okay. Oh yeah. Sure thing. Sure.
So let me know when you're sorted with that.
I got a new phone and I've no idea. So this might take a while.
No problem.
You gone for the cinnamon roll?
Oh yeah, we want cinnamon roll here.
Oh, nice! I've got Santa Gur spread on ciabatta roll.
Oh, good choice. I love
Excellent.
that. Shout out to Weirdo.
Again.
Yet again, as probably always. Other bakeries are available, but why would you?
I'm sad I can't be there in real life. I would love to have some.
We'll save you one. We'll save you one.
Yeah.
Send some down to Brighton or something.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. I had my housewarming party last night, so that's why I can't make it all the way down. And also, I've got a singing lesson almost straight after this. Yeah.
So you mentioned treatises so people who sing early music don't necessarily spend a lot of time with their heads in treatises. Some of them do. Is it a necessity for a viol player? Like, how different are the mechanics compared to contemporary string instruments?
I think I'm in the minority as someone who's most of it. But it's quite hard to read because from 1665 and the printing has not survived especially well. It's been cleaned up quite a bit, but there's no reproduction of it. No good reproduction of it, I'd say. But I learned how to play the viol, like physically how to play the viol. Exercises pulled from the book that my viol teacher written out, in a slightly more first time player friendly way. But I think everyone knows of it, knows certain pieces from it, certain sets of divisions, famous ones. There's famous duet divisions which me and my friend Xander have played. They're fun to play, and people. But I don't think that it's a necessity. I think you could quite easily get bumped. I think quite a lot of people do. So I think it's very similar to singing. Yeah.
Great. So you can kind of get away without having your head too much. And I agree with you, they're really difficult to read. Any early music treatises I've read have been sort of quotes from people who've been more bothered than I am, and they've put them in a modern publication to make it easy. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your programme for Brighton Early Music Festival?
Yeah, sure.
Myths and legends, there's loads of madrigals and sort of vocal music about that, but how do you respond to that as a viol consort?
Yeah, it took us quite a while to find something that all worked. We started out by thinking of doing a program of lots of bits of bird. So we might play instrumentally Neaerasaurus and Civitas. But we decided that was not really myths and legendy enough for this. But eventually we sort of winded our way around to thinking about muses, thinking about the Greek muses, which written about quite a lot by various different people. And our program's called The Tears of the Muses, after the Pavane, The Tears of the Muses by Anthony Holborn, which is probably the only sort of sad pieces in our program. So it's quite it's a title, but it's a very happy program for a very sad. Doing another Holborn dance. We're doing the fairy rap, which is extremely jolly and quite hilarious actually. It's all 6/6/8 3 rhythms the whole time. It's excellent fun. We're also playing. I'm trying to think of what it's called. The piece that we're playing. The other piece that my brain's gone. Let me just get it up. So we're playing 3 pieces. Well, we're playing some Dowland dances, of course. We're playing three Dowland dances. Sorry, let me just get the music up, and then I can remember which ones they are. We're playing Thomas Colliard, Nichols Almond, which is one that we put online, just 45 seconds long. It's long, a couple of days ago, and George Whitehead's Almond as well. So,
Are these
so they're all,
names of benefactors?
I think they were. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm sure it explains it somewhere, and I should probably look it up before we go. But then the other two pieces in our program, I'm actually not playing. I'm singing because it was hard to find purely consort music that wasn't just in for people in country houses. So it wasn't just like a fantasia or something. So yes, we're doing Cease Lead Slumber by Tobias Hume, which is all written out in tab, which is fun for the viol players. In lute tablature, yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful though, beautiful. But yeah, we've transposed both of the pieces down so I can sing them, and not be screeching. So we're doing and Slumber down at fourth.
Countertenor screeching. Never.
Everything you say is so controversial. We're gonna lose everyone watching. We're taking a countertenor with us. Like,
it's fine. It's Lewis. He knows he's not a screecher.
hello, mate.
And then we're doing a bird consort song called "My Mistress Had a Little Dog," which, from looking at the text and singing it a few times, I think is probably about someone who's has a beautiful little dog called Pretty Royal, is killed by this mistress's. And it talks about a beastly man or a manly beast knocking out his brains. It's very, very fun. Yeah,
that reminds me of Catullus and the Little Bird. Sort of Catullus, the classical poet who wrote in Latin, and he was so envious of his lover's bird and killed it. Yeah,
it's a bit Kreutzer Sonata, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting how we've all gravitated towards Greco-Roman myths. And, you mentioned sort of how a lot of the viol music is for sort of country houses and for kind of a very English context. So I wondered if you had any thought, and this is one of the things we're going to talk about today, that English folklore and the myths and legends have been like so completely lost, and I think were quite consciously kind of flushed out when the Romans did invade the UK. Like, to what extent is that a part of it? And I just wondered if you had found any. I mean, this bird sounds much more English as well, but then what is it, do you think, about the appeal of the Muses, for example, that drew you towards that rather than anything kind of more, I don't know,
more English?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thinking about our program, I was determined to get a program that was about sort of the Greenwood and maybe something about Robin Hood or something. I thought it was sort of a place for me to reading in Nottinghamshire. But there are some songs, but there's really that's sort of suitable sort. It's all sort of like lute and voice, which we could have erased. I don't. Yeah, I think it would have taken something from it. And all of the pieces of Muses. They're all very, very, very English. So, even so, Cease Lead Slumber by Tobias Hume is Muses all the way through it, and I think the sort of the Greek thing of the Muses bringing all the arts, I think is a very like strong bit of myth and legend, and it's like sort of perfect. That's probably why we've all gravitated to it. It's very like, yeah, I don't, yeah, my brain's gone blank now.
No, I agree with that. One of the things that really strikes me about about the Greek and the Roman pantheons is that their gods are heavily flawed and in a lot of ways very kind of inept. Especially when you think of the role of deities in religion with single gods. There's a word for that. It's kind of this big, untouchable, perfect, all-knowing, all-powerful kind of 7-in-1, does everything. And then the Greek and Roman gods are constantly falling out with each other and cheating on each other and stealing and drinking. And
turning into swans to shag pretty women.
Exactly, and these big causing these big cataclysmic events because they had a little bit too much wine and fell over, and all of a sudden there's this big crater full of water. They're refreshingly human.
Yeah,
and I think that ends up with them inevitably kind of going and doing all of that god stuff with humans. Which is how we end up with the demigods, the Achilleses, the Herculeses, which are in their own way are, despite them being just people, they are as much the kind of big, heroic, capable characters, if not more so than the gods themselves because of their humanity.
And I'm just thinking as well about the sort of Christian a Jesus figure literally gets used to mean someone who's kind of almost ridiculously without fault.
It's that immaculacy, yeah.
And then exactly, then you have the Virgin Mary, who's basically a scared teenage, nomadic Jewish girl of 13, but becomes this virgin, most pure, and humanity coming closer to purity. Whereas, I don't know, maybe there's something about the Elizabethan period that people just liked the revelry.
Yeah. I'm sure they did. There was so much revelry going on in the lives of the English people then. Being something like 30,000 ale houses they had back then, isn't it crazy? So, there was loads and loads of camaraderie and revelry and going on in all these little pubs. So I feel like.
And also probably needing the bravado. Also I'm supposing Christian religion was such a point of contention at the time. Maybe there was some kind of element of escapology. And I do think of myths and legends as this kind of fantasy layer that gets us away from, escapology.
Do you mean escapism?
Escapism.
It's are we Protestants or are we Catholics? I don't know. Tie me in this straitjacket and let's see.
And put them in a barrel.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Roll me down a hill in Somerset.
But it's funny because the reason I bring up Englishness, not for any kind of, nationalist reasons, but because when we were looking at madrigals, I learned that madrigal, the etymological root is matricale, as in mother tongue. And our other mother, exactly, because they were in Italian and not Latin. So the whole point of the madrigal then, or at least one of the main points of the madrigal, the feature, was that it's in the mother tongue of the people. And, Robin and I have mentioned before that with the Swan Consort, we've done some stuff in Bengali, which is our other mother tongue, and how powerful and emotional experience it was. Whereas with English, because so much of the music we make is already in English, I think it's really easy to lose sight of what a special thing it is to make art in your mother tongue, right? And then on the one hand, you've got all this stuff that's in English, it's in the mother tongue, but it's actually about a pantheon that kind of hails from this Greco-Roman thing. But on the other hand, somehow it feels extraordinarily English. There's something really English about that. Maybe I think you alluded to this, the sort of pastoral nature of things, and we're definitely leaning into that in our program. We're doing stuff from Il Pastor Fido, which is an epic poem by Guarini. Crazy amounts of settings by loads of people, including Monteverdi, Marenzio, but also people you've never heard of, like Gisolo and Fattorini. Then also some of the characters, excuse me, of Silvio and Dorinda and Amaryllis, they, and Amintas, they all appear in like the Triumphs of Oriana, you know, and in songs by Wilby and Farmer and what have you.
Yeah, and you end up with these big devotions to Diana about, you know, the characters from Say Pastor Fido. So you end up with Mirtolo characters because he's a shepherd. There were shepherds all over England at that point, and they were probably about as rowdy. I mean, the immediate parallel that jumps up for me is Purcell's King Arthur. The start of that second half, where it's just this pastoral scene, and it's a solo that I'm lucky enough to do. How blessed are shepherds? How happy their lasses, while drums and trumpets are sounding alarms, and it's just, you know, everyone else is off worrying about where the next meal's coming from, or when the war trumpet's going to go off, and you're going to have to go off and die for king and country, and the shepherds are just there like, cool, I get to sit here and watch these fluffy hill dwellers and play my flute. It's fantastic. It must be a great existence.
My understanding, though, as well, is that like we think of shepherds as kind of nice, peaceful, sort of, you know, because of the Jesus thing again, I think. But apparently they're absolute lads, like absolute lads.
They were the ones keeping those houses going. Definitely.
Absolutely. And actually, isn't there one of in Nottingham famously has like the oldest continuous?
Yeah, something. I haven't been there yet. It's by the castle, I think.
Yeah,
isn't it the oldest pub in England or something?
Like, you sort of go in, and then the further you go in, you're aware that you're sort of in a sort of hewn out rock, like a hollow, like someone's just out this rock and put a bar in there.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I'd love to go, actually.
It would be good.
Yeah. I should. It's only minutes away, so
do it.
Amazing. We also looked at Robin Hood as a source, and there's one madrigal by Weelkes. I think we couldn't find a way to shoehorn it into the programme. But yeah, there is one about Robin Hood, and I think it mentions Diana. Like, it ends up somehow mentioning Diana and Cupid.
Yeah. Well, our bird song mentions Diana as well.
That's so interesting. So the one about Robin Hood.
No, the one about the dog and killing this dog. It's talking about how it's the goddess which Diana hight among her beagles deity had not a hound so fair and white, and graced with such, and yet his beauty was not such. His conditions were as rich. I think it's just saying this dog was pretty ugly.
That's hilarious. This dog was a minger.
Yeah.
Absolute
mutt. But his career was rich, but lived in a nice place.
That's such a great image of just like this absolute scrawny dog, just like on a satin and
like a British bulldog sat in Buckingham Palace or something.
That's so funny. Oh dear. But we should also mention, I suppose, so Diana is the goddess of the hunt, and often is seen as a sort of antipathis. I'm just making up Greek sounding words.
You guys found
antithesis, antipode, the antithesis of Cupid, because Diana is a hunter and uses arrows, but is also kind of like the goddess of single women. She vows to be single forever, and she is also kind of the patron to mothers and so on and so forth. And as a queer woman, there's I'm going to mention that there's a little element of the kind of single woman, or just like no men involved.
I mean, she knows how to deal with them as well.
Men or women?
Men. Thinking about Actaeon, who was very, very unlucky, was going hunting in Diana's woods, stumbled upon her bathing in a lake completely by accident, and she spots him, and she turns him into a stag. He ends up being chased down and eaten by his own hunting hot dogs. Just because he stumbled across her in the shower. He didn't know. That's not his fault. Like, there are lakes everywhere.
So anyway, you have Cupid, who shoots people with these arrows to make them fall in love, and then you have Diana, who is this single, independent woman who's also associated with like motherhood and whatever, who's kind of like just not fussed about men. So I think in the Weelkes madrigal that we saw, that I don't think we'll unfortunately be able to include in the programme this time around, is basically saying that like Robin Hood is such a good shot, like he's great with his arrows, but like they're kind of not, like it doesn't match up to Cupid's arrow. So comparing Robin Hood almost to like the hunting shot, like Diana, and then Cupid.
It's the typical kind of war and love dichotomy that kind of exists throughout some music, particularly Italian madrigalist style.
For sure. For sure. So
I'm sure that Wilkes could be something that Arcolo and the song could do together. Wilkes is very, very nicely to viols and voices.
well, actually, you know, it may be that one of the things to come out of Brighton Early Music Festival is that we look and see what we can do together. Because the other thing is that I've alluded to the fact that Il Pastor Fido, as an epic poem, it inspired so many people. I have a huge list, and what we're going to do is we're going to kind of make a collage approach to telling the story, and rather than doing, say, Sigismondo d'India's set or the Monteverdi set, we're going to like take whichever bit of text we like, who's setting of.
Yeah, sure.
So, you know, a bit of Marenzio, and then Monteverdi can tell the next line, and then Wilby can tell the next line, and then De India. But, you know, there were loads of people who I know have set the text that I couldn't find. Like I mentioned, Gastoldi, Giusolo, who else? Fattorini. And then the other one that is kind of winding me up is Casentini, who has written like what look like absolutely gorgeous motets for 5 voices, and I can only find them in an edition that's been made for viol consort. So I have no idea where the words go. But they're really, really sexy, and you know, I would love to put the words back on them, but I think if I give the swans all those different C clefs, they will.
But it's in C's, is it? We don't like playing in C's. We do. Well, I wouldn't mind it. We just never have. We have enough rehearsal to just sort of bash through it. So we quite often just play in sort of quartet notations. So trebles play in treble clef, tenors play in alpha, and then bass plays in bass clef. Unless if it's 2 tenor parts and a bass part, and the second is quite low, we'll pop that on the bass.
Do the middle parts play with the alto clef? Yeah.
So that's sort of the standard for vocons files. Music's most likely, most often written in bass clef, alto clef.
That's really interesting, because again, as an organist, this is one of the sort of bugbears that even I think 30, 40 years ago it was really common for organists to just read C clefs. And if you look at sort of like the original Novello Bach editions, they're just like in whatever C clef is kind of.
Oh yeah.
So, and it was recently taken out of the FRCO examinations to score read something with C clefs. And again, as someone who's doing like orchestral conducting as well, that's kind of like actually would have been useful to have been forced to read the C clef.
They pop up all over the place where you least expect them. Round top.
I did some rehearsals. I just depped for some rehearsals of Cesare, Handel, and I bought the Dover full score because it was cheaper than buying a different. But all of it is in. It's all in random clefs. You know, like the alto parts are all in alto clef. You can't really see it, but yeah, it's hilarious. And I was like, I didn't really read it back then, so it was, yeah.
I think we often congratulate ourselves as musicians that we're so much more technically advanced and virtuosic than musicians in the past. But actually,
lies and deceit.
I think actually intellectually we're a lot. I don't want to use a controversial word, but like we're just not as intellectually flexible with our response to staff notation.
I think so. I think staff notation's really kind of been a massive turning point and has made a massive shift in kind of the attitudes towards stuff, even to the point of, you know, the quote, one of my favorite things, the tyranny of the bar line. This idea of kind of horizontal line not being so, and you end up getting the kind of 1, 2, 3, and do it with bars, and even things like, having to ask Victor questions and not just knowing when that should be a sharp and spotting the mi contra fa and stuff like that. And this is stuff that people would
nerd alert.
This is stuff that people would get absolutely. They would turn up, having never seen the music, be sight reading. Probably have been out on the wines or the meads or whatever.
I mean, Wilkes notorious.
If it's probably both. But they would just turn up, and it would just happen. And there's just a certain level of skill to that I absolutely respect.
Yeah, although we do read about how amazing it. We don't know firsthand, do we? So it could have been an absolute nightmare.
It could have been a bit ropey, but
yeah. Doubt it was.
Have you ever experimented without the tyrannical bar lines?
We've played a few people got bar lines. I remember it wasn't all of us, but on a summer course, me and Kai, one of our tenor players, we went on. We played a piece by Christopher Tye called Trust, and the edition we played it in had 12 bars, by which they were all 24, 25 beats long, these bars. And it sort of fell in 5 beats in a bar if you could put it into an edition in 5, but it was brilliant. Yeah.
Do you find that it makes you play differently when you don't have bar lines?
Yeah, it can be quite scary actually. I think that's just because we've all grown up modern players, and then you go to this bar line.
And it's one of these things musically, like the horizontal versus the vertical. And again, I've mentioned before that the Indian classical tradition is much more just horizontal and kind of free-flowing melodically. I think it's really interesting when you get imitation and a lot in the kind of music that both of our groups do. The whole point is that the composer has shifted the emphasis and kind of moved it around and displaced that in one of the parts. And I hear it so often that gets lost in, groups that are singing or playing something, and you can hear the bar lines, even in the most subtle way. The one thing that I've managed to get everyone to do without bar lines, and I think I only get away with it because they know it and they've learned it with, but it is Gibbon's God Is Gone Up.
Okay.
And it makes a huge difference without bar lines, because the genius of that piece is that actually completely displaces where the stress is, and then it snaps back at a really crucial moment. So I'm encouraging anyone who is an early music person to just give it a go without bar lines. I say they're like I'm not so much on the tyranny side. I keep saying that they're like Tinkerbell. They only exist if you believe in them. They only exist if you believe in them.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much choral music that's in bars which just don't make sense. Loads of bird editions where you're just going, why is that bar line there? It should be, if they're going to do it, it should be the beat after blah blah.
A lot of the times it can actually change the outcomes with kind of our expectations of what bars do. Things like having accidentals last for a bar. Whereas it would have just been the note. The one that springs from me there is the rampantly famous Bird Ave Verum in the tenor line, where you get the because it's in the same bar. Originally would have been a flat, and it's not there in the original editions. And if you turn that back into a minor chord there, it changes the feel of that ending. And there must be countless others. Send in your favourites. Let us know if there's a moment where something's wildly different or feels wildly different without bar lines. Let us know your favourite kind of bar line moments.
I do feel like we are going down an extraordinarily niche and
true.
nerdy line. Shall we sort of back out of this? I
tell you what, we've mentioned the story of Il Pastor Fido several times. Maybe some people out there who are like, what's that? Shall I give us a quick read of the story?
Yeah, let's do it. Are you on good old Wikipedia?
Good old Wikipedia. So, up the contributors. So it's one of these stories. It starts to redress an ancient wrong. This is the gods having fluffed something up and trying to kind of remedy it. And of course, what they come up with is the gods of Arcadia every year to try and redress this. All they ask is the sacrifice of a virgin. And this curse that lays over the land can only be lifted when a young man and a young woman, each of godly descent, so descended from this pantheon of deities, get married. Now it's believed in Arcadia that the only two people who can do this are a young man called Silvio and the nymph Amaryllis.
So the reason is, and this is alluded to in the poem, that apparently for all of the years previously, there are two lines descended from gods, and they've only had sort of same-sex couples at any one time. So really, the solution was institute same-sex marriage, but whatever.
Exactly. So we end up with kind of two separate storylines here. We end up with Silvio, who kind of is a very manly man and loves hunting, playing with his boys, and gives no thought to anything romantic or his impending marriage. And he's pursued by a nymph named Dorinda, who tries for several ways and many times to win him over, and just doesn't. So one day she disguises herself as a shepherd in wolfskin clothes, and after going on a hunt with him, she lies down for a rest, at which point Silvio mistakes her for a wolf and shoots her. And having wounded her in kind of tending to her and making sure she gets better, he actually kind of falls for her. Meanwhile, Amaryllis is being pursued by a young shepherd named Mirtillo. She loves him back this time, but she's keeping that secret because she knows about this whole marriage thing. Meanwhile, there's a rather fleeting nymph called Cariska, who also...
Corsica,
No, Cariska.
Oh, I've just been reading it as Corsica.
Deary me.
Whoops.
No, so the nymph Cariska, who also loves him and plots to get rid of Amaryllis. And she tries to set up... Bum, bum, bum. Now, she tries to do this by trapping her in a cave with a satyr named Corridon, who incidentally is in love with Cariska, to make it look as if she has broken her wedding vows and the whole thing will be called off and he will be all mine. But it goes awry, as these things often do, and she ends up trapping Amaryllis and Mirtillo in this cave together.
7 minutes in heaven.
Exactly. Well, 7 minutes in a rocky crag.
Same difference.
And then, right at the last minute, it's all gone wrong. People have discovered this. Everyone's outraged. Nothing's going to be able to happen. The curse will never be listed. And then the Jeremy Kyle DNA test comes back for Mirtillo, and it turns out that Mirtillo is also descended from gods.
Because of some kind of infidelity between some god and the high priest.
Yeah, the high priest, who happens to be his dad. It's those randy priests. And yeah, as a result, everyone can marry everyone that they want to. Amaryllis and Mirtillo go together. Silvio and Dorinda goes together. Cariska feels sorry. I don't know if she ends up with Corridon. But okay, am I falling out over here?
You're fine.
Cool. But yes, everything ends up, as it so often does, just someone comes off from on stage and goes, "It's fine, you two should kiss," and they kiss, and it's the end. Big dance number. So that is the basis of our tale.
It is like a Bollywood movie.
Oh yeah.
Like, I swear it's basically Kabhi Khushi Kabhie Gham. Like, it's, yeah. Wow.
That is going to be a particular niche.
That's a very niche
People
reference.
who know enough about Il Pastor Fido and also enough about KKKG.
Yeah, exactly. If you like early music and know your Bollywood movies,
in the comments. In the comments. Best magical and like Yashraj film comparisons.
Amazing. So yeah, that's the story. I mean, Also, I mean, feel like we can weave the dog into it, Matthew, potentially. Dog somewhere.
That would work. I have to say, it's a hilarious story. It's brilliant. I didn't really know it very well, but
The
it's
Silvio thing as well is that he is so obsessed with hunting. He just wants to hunt that he's not even interested in women at all. So he has a friend who, like, the whole first act of his friend being like, if I was as good looking as you, I would be bonking everything. And Silvio's like, yeah, I'm not interested, mate. I just want to go hunting. And he's like, but the pleasures of love, the bittersweet pain, the shagging. And he's like, yeah, mate, I'm not interested. I want to go on the hunt.
Oh no, that's a woman.
And then, this is what, so one of the madrigals that we will be singing that I think is quite famous is the Monteverdi, Quell'Augel che canta. So that is actually part of a big long poem where he's like, even bulls make love, and cats and butterflies, and the birds sing lustily in the trees.
Birds do it, bees do it, even educated fleas do it. Let's do it. Let's shoot someone and fall in love.
It's like, one of the things I love about early music is how the humanness of people 500 years ago is just so freaking relatable. Like, we have friends like this, right? Like,
people who go hunting and.
I
guess you could call it hunting nowadays, couldn't you?
No, yeah, we're like out on the rares, like so often.
Yeah.
You could be like pulling everyone, or like really committed to someone who's like, nah, mate, Jaeger bombs. But,
yeah, but also just like being just the obsession with like games and shagging.
Yeah.
And also the infidelity stuff and the Jeremy Kyle thing.
And the jealousy that kind of pervades a lot of it as well. It's the fact that it's this kind of thing that burns and is all and kind of consumes and twists the way that we're supposed to think and act, and that happens all over the shop, doesn't it?
I do feel like a lot of the love that happens in these stories, though, is very immature. Like, you can tell that life expectancy was between 30 and 50, and that most of these people are absolute teenagers. This is like a 13-year-old being like, I'm gonna die, she doesn't like me.
That's exactly what it's like.
We all know a 13-year-old like that.
Or like when you're 15 and you fall in love for the first time.
Oh yeah, that first time, that head over heels time. Yeah. Goodness me. But yeah, I mean, just imagine. But also, I think again that plays into it because there's that kind of dynamic of like the gods as, they're flawed, but they're parental. Sammy's loving the comparisons between Cole Porter and Monteverdi. Thank you for joining us. They're flawed, but they're also kind of parental, and they are the only people who are able to kind of, influence big things that affect us, but still holden to things like fate and destiny. Meanwhile, as humans are just completely blown about by this. And yeah, are kind of childish and immature and inexperienced. And then, I don't know, maybe the combination of those two things is why the demigods end up being somewhat capable.
Absolutely. Maybe humanity is the answer. Oof. So I'm really conscious, Matthew, that you have a singing lesson that you've.
Yeah. It's not, but it's just like
I feel like we should give you an opportunity to give one last plug for Arculo. Tell us what you're doing. Tell us if you have anything coming up before the end of the year, anything else that you want to say about the group that you've not said already.
I wish I could say that we had other things in the diary. but currently Bremph is our only gig in the diary. We find it quite hard to because we all have muggle jobs. We all quite hard to find times on enough where we're all free. So but we're very excited for Brighton. We've got another weekend rehearsal coming up in 2 weeks' time.
Amazing. Definitely remember to take some little clips or something.
Yeah, we all get so into the playing we sort of forget. But yeah, we should definitely take some snaps. The place we're rehearsing is absolutely full. It's a little village called Chacombe. I don't know how you say it, but it's Chace. Just outside Banbury, and this lovely couple have a barn where we're rehearsing.
That's gorgeous.
It is very lovely. Yeah, we were there last weekend, or was it the weekend before? I think it was last weekend. And we also have a tennis court, so we played around the world tennis court with 5 people, and yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about us. I mean, you can look on our website and book us if you really want.
What I would love to say about you is it's so exciting to meet a viol consort that's like the same age as us.
Oh yeah.
Because absolutely no shade to the Rose Consort of Viols, fretwork, etc.
We love you. We do.
I was so excited to see that there's like a young artist group of viol players.
Well, the last young artist group that were a viol consort Bremph was Kalis, and I think 2007, 2008, something like that. So it's been quite a while.
Long overdue.
Yeah, definitely. Such good music as well.
Tell us what arculon means.
So it comes from the origins of the instrument, actually, because it comes from the guitar family. It is a member of the guitar family, and it's basically they had the vihuela, which is sort of what came just before guitar. And someone decided they were going to put an arched bridge on it and play it with a bow, call it the vihuela cum arculo. And so we just took the arculo and use that as our name. It's a really interesting progression from guitar through to viol, and it's why we have gut frets like the lute and rock guitars have nowadays. We sometimes use a different, but it's essentially the same.
So it's an arculo is all that's standing between you guys being a guitar band, or the
yeah. Oh yeah.
I knew that was coming. As soon as you said guitar band.
the
original rock stars. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh yes, the original rock stars of viol consort. That and that reminds me of one last thing that I will say before I go. When I was training to be a teacher in Newham, I was teaching in the Royal Docks School, which is now the Royal Docks Academy. And my first session with what then became my GCSE group, one of the girls asked me, what was the first ever pop song? And I think she thought I was going to say Beatles or something. And I was like, Dowland Flow My Tears. It was mixed by Spalink. It was played on every instrument. It was sampled.
They made an instrumental cover.
Yeah. It's an instrumental piece. I think it was originally.
It was the Pavana Lacrime first, wasn't it?
Yeah, Lacrime Eque, I think it is.
And then
and then Darlan was like, "Oh, this is nice. I'll put some words to it." Yeah, but I think actually before even for viol, it was just a lute solo. I think. Yeah.
Well, there we go. See, original pop song, original rock stars.
The first guitar solo.
That's the new tagline. You can pay me when you're rich.
Yeah, we'll put that on. We'll put that on the new 1670.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Matthew.
Thank you for having me.
We can't wait to meet the rest of the consort and have a great singing lesson.
Thank you very much.
Send us the audio from that you've recorded in.
Yeah, I will do.
Together for people who want to watch back.
Cool.
Okay, take care.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm going to lean across you. Bye. There we go. Amazing.
Lovely.
Well, I don't have too much else left to say except to kind of have a think about where myths and legends might go as a theme for us as a group in the future. So the first thing that sprung to mind when I heard myths and legends was related to the etymological origin of the word myth, which comes from the Sanskrit mitta, which means a lie.
It's Sanskritic.
Yeah, myth, mitta. Like even in Bengali, right? Mitte kocho. You're lying. So here's
That's amazing. I always thought it would be Latinate or something.
Well, it's Indo-European, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting because a myth, therefore, is something that is a falsehood that didn't really happen. And we were obviously also raised with the myths or the legends, the stories from South Asia, and that includes kind of romantic legends. So Hiranta, which is like the original Romeo Juliet, Layla Majnu, but also the kind of the stories in the Mahabharata, the sort of Hindu stories. And it's interesting because I think one of the similarities between that and the Greco-Roman pantheon is that unlike in the British context where we sort of think of fairies as something that aren't really real, or in like a parallel world we can accept it, or historic, like, you know, actually the myths and legends of the South Asian subcontinent, similar to the Greco-Roman, are kind of like part of the everyday cosmology.
Yeah.
They're part of everyday life. So, you know, they're continuous, they're contemporaneous. If someone calls you, like, if someone says that that person is like Shiva, then there's a kind of meaning that there's some kind of actual essence of Shiva in that person. So one of the things that Matthew alluded to was wanting to do a bit of research and editing, and I think time is always a factor putting programs together.
Completely.
If we had a bit more time, one of the things that we looked at was commissioning some songs on texts about South Asian myths and legends, South Asian folkloric stories. And the poet Sitara Khan, who I've done collaborations with before, has written a series of 5 poems in the kind of epic Urdu style about different lovers, including Hiraja, Layla Majnu, and there's another one that's Shireen and
I can't remember.
But they're beautiful. So we are hoping that what will come out of this Brighton Early Music Festival program is a program where we compare, on the one hand, the sort of pastoral cosmology of Il Pastor Fido and of all these nymphs and satyrs, Robin Hood, all of that, with the South Asian world of coexisting mythological or sort of supernatural beings who transcend time and space. But yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, obviously with Arcadia being this kind of, you know, pastoral hedonistic paradise, you know, it's, you know, almost kind of slightly aspirational, I think, for people at the time with, you know, the escapology that we mentioned and all of that. But there's a genuine sense, even through to today, because of the mythological basis of belief. You know, it's these myths lead to these stories, and you know, the human aspect and the human essence is there within them, even in these supernatural beings, because we're all connected spiritually to every other spirited thing and these beings. And I think it's really interesting, and really when set to music, which is, you know, an energy unto itself, which can do very much the same thing, I think it's just so much potential there.
So, in conclusion, let us know what your favourite myths and legends are, what your favourite folklore is.
Drop them in the comments.
In the comments, in the chat. Let us know about your favourite music that's related to myths, legends, and folklore. We would love to come up with a playlist or something on Spotify. That would be really, really fun.
Absolutely. Make sure as well that you follow us along on our socials. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We are on Twitter as well. Search for us at the Swan Consort. You can see all of our other exploits, including other madrigals that we've done, and some more extended works on our YouTube channel. Get in touch with us. Make sure that you keep up and subscribe as well. Hit that red subscribe button. Make sure that you are with us for brunch.
Shameless plugs.
Exactly. Make sure that you're with us for brunch first Saturday of every month.
10:30 a.m. Next one, 6th of November. Okay? 6th of November, 10:30 a.m. We've got a brunch date. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.